Hi, my name's Katie Skilton. I'm a creative designer with Sizzix. This week we're going to be doing a vlog on some spring cards. At last the snow has gone and hopefully we're looking forward to some warmer weather. So I've designed these little cards here and I'm going to share them with you in a video. So why don't you grab a cup of tea, sit back and enjoy. So we're going to be making two cards today. We're going to be using the Garden Florals by My Life Handmade. We've also got the Scribble and Splat here by Tim Holtz. You'll need some cardstock, some scissors, some 3D foam pads, some wet glue, hot glue gun and some vintage photo distress ink. I've also used some adhesive stones just to embellish the cards afterwards. So let's get started. Now I've printed out the Happy Spring on the computer already. I used this just by using a font on the computer and sizing it to the size I wanted. And I'm going to cut this using this little circular oval here. And that is going to sit on our mason jar in a second. So I'll die cut this out. Pop that to the side, and also we will die cut our little mason jar. Now I've pre-cut some of the flowers because there's quite a lot of flowers, so I pre-cut those rather than you watch me cut every single one out. There we go, pop those in there. So let's just move the big shot out of the way. Let's start with the one with the Scribble and Splat first. So again, here I've printed Happy Spring just in the centre of my card, and I'm going to take the Scribble and Splat and I'm actually going to cut away the centre element because all I want is the outer edge of it. So we'll just trim that, and then that's that bit gone. Poke that bit out, actually just get rid of that little bit there so it looks tidy, and we're going to glue this on. So just using some wet glue, I'm going to pop this on so that the Happy Spring is right in the centre, maybe a little bit lower down so that when I pop the flowers on we've got room for the leaves and things. Actually I'm going to bring in my paper sculpting kit as well, because what I want to do is just add some detail and some kind of dimension to the flowers. So if we pop the flowers on the mat here, if we get them all on at once, there we go. So just going to add some shape to those. Simply just using the ball tool just in the centre of the flower. It's just going to give them some dimension, and then we can add those onto the card. I'm just going to use some hot glue because it dries nice and quickly. So just add the flowers on. We're going to cover the centres of the flowers in a minute, so if you can see hot glue through it, not to worry. Those on there. Let's just remove the string of glue that we've got. There we go. So we've got our leaves here as well. So the leaves come with a little score line in, so you just fold those, that'll give those dimension. I don't want them too big because I'm only using the smaller flowers, so I'm actually going to trim those slightly. Just give those a little snip, and those are going to tuck behind the flowers. Again, you're going to see these for a minute until we put the centre of the flower in. You're actually going to see them tucked behind, but that will all cover up in a second. There we go. I'll pop those on there like so, and then we've also got the branches here, so I'm going to again snip those. I don't want them too long. I'm we're just going to have those hanging down. So for these I'll just use some wet glue. Actually I'm going to make those even smaller. I think they're still too big. There we go. That's coming down there. Like so. Then we've got these tiny little flowers here, so we're just going to use those to embellish. So we'll just add those onto the little hoop. We'll remove all the hot glue strings in a second. There we go. So we'll take the little yellow centres of the flowers now, and we can just add those on. I think this really kind of gives it that finishing touch, adding the yellow. Whoop. So we use some hot glue and then they'll stay faster, there'll be no move in them. And then to really bring out the colour, I'm going to layer this onto some cardstock. So we'll take some of the orangey pink cardstock there and layer that on. You can see that really kind of brings it to life. And then I've got a craft card blank here that I've trimmed down to size. Pop that one on there. And in a minute, when we finish the other one, we'll add some adhesive stones to that one as well, but we'll let that one dry for a second. So for the second card, we're going to take a plain piece of white card. Now, I've used this the same size as the other one, so about 4 by 4. And I'm just going to take my mason jar, I'm just going to ink around the edges to really give it some dimension there. And I'm going to add this onto the project using some 3D foam pads. I'm going to keep the 3D foam pads at the bottom of the jar because in a minute I want to add the flowers in, and when I start popping the stems in, it's easier if you've got a bit of space at the top. So pop that one into the centre, and then I've got my sentiment here that I die cut just now. I'm just going to remove some of the ink off this because I really want this to be subtle. So again, I'm just going to ink around the edges. There we go. Add that onto the mason jar. So it looks quite plain at the moment, but we'll add some colour and that will totally change. So I've got the stem here that I've die cut. So this is the stem that we can add the flower heads to. Let's move all this out of the way a little bit. We'll add the stems into a jar. like so. Then I'm going to add the greenery because I want the greenery to sit behind. Again, I'm just going to trim this down a little bit because I don't think I need it. So I've added flowers on here, and then we're just going to add the centres of the flowers again. I think when you bring in the yellow, it really makes these cards pop. Pop that one on there. And we've got a smaller one for the smaller flower. Add the centres on. Then we've got some other little flowers here that I'm going to add on. So again, a little bit of glue. Pop this stem coming from here. Add the centre of the flower. And this one we are just going to trim, so I'm going to cut the head off the pink and attach it to the green. We'll pop that one right in the front there. I think we'll pop a little 3D foam pad on there just to give it some dimension as well. That's it. Then we've got the butterfly here. I'm just going to shape the butterfly a little bit. Pop that one on behind the label. And then again, I'm going to mat and layer it. Get rid of some of this onto some purple cardstock. We'll layer this onto the craft card. Like so. So then we've got our two cards, and we're just going to add some finishing touches to them. So we're just going to add some little gems to them, just to finish them off. This one we're just going to pop the centres on the flowers as well. There we go, a couple more. And there we have it, spring themed cards. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, if you've been making any spring projects or any projects for that matter, remember to share them with us on Facebook and Instagram. Just tag us in your makes. We love to see what you're making with our dies. That's all for me for this week, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks with another vlog and back next week with a blog post. See you soon.